Welcome, Wargamers. Join your hosts, Bonko and Monte, two Canadian wargaming enthusiasts, as we explore all aspects of tabletop wargaming. We roll dice, talk tactics, share hobby hacks, and explore new tabletop systems, all on the Trident Wargaming Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back. We are joined with special guest John from Tabletop Gaming.
Tabletop Trash Gaming, I think. Something like that. Tabletop Trash Gaming.
I was peeking at it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
It's very cool. Very cool. It's always nice to be able to team up with other podcast groups and individuals in the heresy community. So definitely thanks for jumping on with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always good to talk 30K.
I guess before we dive into too deep, just talk a little bit about some hobby stuff. We may as well start with you though, John. What have you been doing hobby-wise in the last little bit?
So actually, my gaming group. So I played War Machine a while back. Hardcore played it and stopped when 8th edition dropped. But my gaming group, we kind of got back into it because it was very low cost of entry because the market's flooded with used models. So I've been painting some bit of that, but also been assembling some Blood Angels. I got some Angels tears all primed up, planning to knock those out really quick, and got some Mechanicum too, all base coated. I'm wondering if I should touch up on those, or it's the thing, right? I'm like, what do I work on,
Yeah.
So, but still haven't decided what Legion I'm gonna do with the new box set. We'll see. How about you guys?
Oh man, lately I've been working on a fair amount of some 40K, and we've been doing a slow grow league as we've been waiting for some heresy stuff to drop. New edition, obviously, kind of kicking forward. We are planning on having a farewell heresy 1.0 event coming up in the next little bit. Try and do a nice little farewell to the system we've been playing for almost a decade, basically. So that's about it on my end. How about you, Andy?
Recently, just kind of working on some Necrons for 40K. Finally got a little paint scheme nailed. Pretty easy to do. I like working with the glows and the greens, so it's nice to do that. One of the colors I don't really get to play around with too much is the greens. And then some bolt action just on as my other hobby love, working on a German force, of course. And just little tidbits here and there, trying to finish up White Scars, like bases, which I've been putting off forever. So but yeah, like Bill said, we'll have that heresy kind of end party for it, and it'll probably be like, I don't know, one of the maybe 4th games for my Scars. So it'll be kind of play with the old rules and then switch it over to the new rules when everything starts to kick off, right? So
that's what it's all about.
Good. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just all the hobby stuff that I'm into, there's just little bits here and there kind of picking away. So
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, being a Horus Heresy episode, we definitely had a couple things we wanted to touch base on. First thing that was kind of it's been an ongoing thing on some of the pages and different heresy groups there on Facebook, but I guess I want to address new players coming into the system. New players are always a good thing. Very positive to have new players joining, obviously, because the system grows, it gets better, gets more exposure, which is more exposure usually means more support. And I kind of have to say I'm a little bit worried for new players jumping in. There seems to be a lot of this undercurrent of kind of negativity towards any of the new guys that jump on and ask questions. And to me, realistically, there are no bad questions when you're asking heresy. Anywhere from using this type of vehicle or pattern of vehicle, armor marks, stuff like that, like, by all means, ask away. Like, I have no issue with, answering questions, but it seems that there is a good majority, and I want to say just a couple vocal guys, but there's a lot of people on these pages that just kind of pounce on these poor new guys and just belittle them and kind of just act generally maybe not as cool as they should. I don't know. What do you guys think? You guys see this trend?
I mean, from what I see, it's the thing is, if someone's being negative to a new person, that's kind of easy to avoid. Like, oh, clearly that guy's being mean, so should close with it really quick. Yeah, it's easy to say like, oh, like that guy's being mean, don't listen to him. But what I'm more worried about are like the guys who, oh yeah, welcome to Heresy, guys. It's gonna be great, but you gotta make sure you can only use these specific models. You gotta file those Achillas. You gotta get the right transfers, or if you have a 40k bit, oh no, you better strip your model and throw in the garbage can. We don't have that here, so it's that kind of stuff that worries me. And because Heresy has it's a historical game, but even that, like, what does that mean? What's historical? So yeah. What's narrative?
It's true. It's interesting because it's in Heresy itself, like in the Nether systems, I have a friend who always points it out, and we call them the rivet counters, right? They're just nitpicking at these little things, like player A could have this immaculate looking painted army that he's spent hours and hours and hours on. Sorry, no, you have the wrong mark of armor for that army based off of that time frame. Well, come on, So like, I totally get what you're saying there, John, about that, because it's we see it a lot in Heresy. Some of the other systems that I'm in, you don't see it too much, but it is there. And it's funny because I play bolt action, and that's like World War II. That's way more historical than anything. You do see it, but you don't. Like, it's very, very rare that it comes up. And even in our local group, like, nobody cares that you have the wrong tank in the army, right? So, but yeah, I don't know, for Heresy, like, it's weird. It's just, you almost get kind of crucified if you don't have the right armor or the right bolter, or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. We see it all the time on the Facebook chats and stuff in the groups, and but yeah, going back to like the new player jumping in, it's a little worrying some, but I think with the right players in place, and in communities, especially in community leaders, that's where the big hitting point is those community leaders. But you would hope to have them kind of reach out and say, hey, welcome to Heresy, glad you're here, need any help, any questions, hit us up, let's do it, right? Let's help you out, not just there to criticize, kind of thing, right? So
yeah,
my opinion.
with one thing, especially with using like a bunch of different bits, like being a gamer who has played and still actively plays both systems, there's a treasure trove of bits and models from both systems you can use to really make your force look dynamic and really cool. And I don't know, like, the question I'm kind of curious about is, what happened to Rule of Cool? Like, if you're decking out a bunch of your models with some 40k bits, and they're not like obviously hardcore 40k, I'm not talking Primaris armor or anything like that, but if you're just mixing and mashing bits, why not? One of the gents on the page, and this one kind of stuck out to me a lot, was, so he has Chaos Space Marines, new Chaos Space Marine models, and he has a bunch of Heresy MK3 shoulders and backpacks and little bits of Mark IV in there as well. And to me they look really cool. Like, wow, that looks awesome. And some of the guys just jumping on him like, no man, I'm looking at 40k models, this is trash. And I was like, even the new cover of the next Siege of Terra book has legit Chaos Space Marine models on it. Like, You tell me that guy, Sons of Horus, he's got the palish blue flesh, red eyes, and he's all trimmed up with the armor. You tell me that's not a Chaos Space Marine? Like, holy man, like, I don't know. It's just, the fluff is there for me personally as a guideline. Where you go with the fluff and what you're doing with your army and how you're building and painting your forces, that is really, it's a loose way because it's all subjective. What's narrative and what's fluffy to you and how you want to see your force like on the table, like that's the number one, I think, is making sure you're doing what's going to make you happy with your army and not worrying about what other guys are going to say, especially if there's going to be any negative comments about it. It's just, do you, that's the best form of advice I can give, and rule of cool always, because that's been a thing since even before we started playing Heresy, like since the 90s, man. Like, rule of cool. If it looks cool, do it, because it will, someone else will notice it on the tabletop and be like, oh, wow, that looks really cool, I like that model. Awesome. Like, it's just, I don't know, that's one thing that just bugs me a little bit.
Yeah, because I remember when I first started, when I remember Book 1 came out, when there was barely any Heresy models. People were converting 40k left and right because that's what we had, right? I was using the old Chaos Marine bits for my first Sons of Horus army because that's all we had. We didn't have the fancy Mark 6, Mark 4 plastics. But yeah, for some reason now, because we have this Forge World range, you can only stick to that. You got to use the Heresy models. Nah, man, if the bits look cool, go for it. And yeah, it's a historical game. No, I do want to point out though that at the end of the day, it's still historical, quote unquote. And the example I always joke with my friends about is, if I flew to Adepticon and I went to the narrative event and I was fighting a Demon Prince Dorn, I'd be like, I don't know,
Yeah.
like that's clearly not in the Heresy. If you're playing a narrative event, but if some guy has Indomitus Terminator armor and it looks dope, then it looks dope, right?
Yep.
Like, it's, yeah. Like, it's really obvious to see what's Heresy and what's not. Like, who's traitor, who's loyalist. This like Horus. This is what he looks like. This is the model. And there's also and then on the other side, there's the what's it called, the hobby side, where you kind of build your own stuff. You want to build some Night Lords using the new Chaos Marine models to represent some kind of chaos cult within the Legion. Yeah, go for it. If you want to do some Mark 7 Imperial Fists, a veteran squad that got the shipment from Mars, yeah, go for it. Put the effort in, get that dope yellow in, and you're good.
Yep.
You shouldn't feel bad that it's not historically accurate. Like, what is it? It's not in the rules that says you can't use Mark 7. The books don't say, there's no line saying, you can't have Mark 7.
Yeah,
it's there.
Yeah, no, totally agree. You did bring up a good point, and it kind of refreshed my memory. Like, at the time when we were all starting to play and Heresy did come out, we were rocking out fucking Beta Wars, man. We were playing out of the Imperial armor books. Everyone was rocking Marines, and then it's like, hey, let's jump over to Heresy. And it was like, oh, cool. We jumped over, and yeah, straight up, we were using a ton of 40k models to jump in, right? Like, it was all new, and at the time, it's like, hey, you want to buy this 10-man squad of Mark II Marines for like $95, and I'm like, no, I got a 10-man squad of regular, Marines for, at the time, I think it was like $35, and I was like, no way, man, like, forget that. So
I think I was doing the Red Scorpions at the time.
Yeah.
And they had the Mark 4.
Mm-hmm.
They had Mark 4 armor, like the sets that I got from Forge World.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like transitioning some of that over was pretty neat, because it was like, okay, they have that armor, it's already there, I can do it. But you still mixed in anything else you had in your hobby supplies, pretty much, your war chest of bits that everybody had back then.
Mm-hmm.
Tanks were still the same, stuff like that. They didn't really have the Demios pattern tanks and whatnot, but it's kind of crazy how it's kind of evolved, from hey, make your army, build it, paint it up, do it how you want. It's, kind of entirely up to you how you go about it, stuff like that, to, oh boy, that's not the right bolt gun. So, but on the other side too, there are people out there though who are pretty good about it. Like they're pretty appreciative of the amount of time and whatnot spent on having your army built and painted and done up and playing on the table, right? So
Yeah.
It goes both ways, but of course, people remember the bad thing 10 times more than the good thing. But I don't know. I'm hoping with all these new plastics and stuff coming out that we are going to see a lot of very interesting looking armies coming. Obviously, probably some progress through the heresy with some later marks, of course. And I'm hoping to see what people do with conversions.
Yeah.
Because I think that aspect of the hobby has been kind of lost, right? And that kind of goes across a lot of systems. Like you still see some pretty kick-ass conversions. I know we've seen some Titanicus stuff that just blows our mind, and then there's other people that continuously do up characters. Like I know I got some conversions for my characters in my Ultramarines force, but yeah, I don't know. I know myself and Bill, we come from that age of they didn't have that model, so I'm making my own war boss for my orcs, right? And there you go. So
Yeah.
same kind of thing. Interesting to see what people do with these new praetors that they've showed us. So
That's true.
that'd be pretty cool.
Back in the day, to further expand on that point, Andy was speaking. Back in the day, they had models in the codex that you couldn't even buy because some dude handmade it. I remember my Chaos, 3rd edition codex there, and has this little Chaos Star asterisk. It's like, you can't actually buy this because this dude made it. And you're like, oh, shit, okay, right? Like, to now where everything is basically, I don't want to say cookie cutter, but in a sense it is cookie cutter, where the conversions and stuff have kind of dropped off the wayside because it just seems like, yeah, it's just easier to buy and just, mass produce your squads and armies and stuff. To those who are still, doing the green stuff work, the sculpting and making their own unique characters, total props. Like, I love looking at that stuff. But that's one aspect of the hobby that person clearly enjoys, and it shouldn't take away from someone else who just wants to buy models and throw them on the board, right? Like, it's just it's back and forth. And I will agree, Heresy is a historical game for Warhammer. It's funny to think about it like that, right? It's historical in the 31st millennium, but it is historical where the extra attention to detail, such as armor marks, and if you're going to use a Phobos or an Umbra pattern bolter, like all that stuff kind of really starts to layer on the immersion of the the historical setting. But at the same time, I'm not going to go at anybody and be like, hey, that's a 40k Melta-Gun, bro. Like, I don't care, right? Like, a Melta-Gun's a Melta-Gun. You can clearly see what it is. Same with plasma guns. I like to use Chaos Space Marine style on some of my Iron Warrior stuff because it looks cool and it's got the chaosy trim and whatnot. It's just, to me, it is what it is. Weapons are weapons. Especially when you start getting into using a bunch of upgrade packs, like 40k is notorious. It has Iron Hands, Salamander, White Scar, tons of different plastic upgrade kits that came out for their Primaris Marines. Dude, I've seen those slapped on tons of different Heresy armies, and they look fantastic. They look so good. And they're all customized, like very, to the Legion that they're supposed to be going for. And that's just another thing. Like, okay, there might be like the odd, clearly that's, a Mark 7, Mark 8 errant style shoulder pad, but for the most part, everything else has studs or bling and everything else. Like, to me, anything goes with the upgrade stuff. Like, it's just, it all has a place, I think. So
Yeah, actually, it reminds me. The sickest Indomitus Terminators I've seen are for 30k. I saw a guy Imperial Fist. He put the aggressor shoulder pads from 40k.
Oh, yeah.
They look so good on Indomitus Terminators because you got the Legion logo there.
Yeah.
And these look big and bulky and looks great. And so what if it's 40k, right? it works.
Yep.
And I do think that the narrative minutia of 30K, of what pattern bolter you have, what kind of armor you're wearing, what shade of armor you have, because in the Heresy, a lot of legions they change their colors. The Imperial, and my buddy plays Imperial, and he always says that they go from purple to pink. And I think that kind of minutia should be on the player as a way to tell the story of their legion. It shouldn't be used as this kind of the magical word of gatekeeping, right?
Yeah.
For other people, it should be a way for you to tell your story. I got these Mark 6 for my 1,000 Sons because they were buddies with the Raven Guard, and they were able to test the armor with them. This recon company. That's why my 1,000 Sons are Mark 6. Cool, and not like, oh, only Raven Guard can use that. Sorry, that's why the marks exist. No, it should be a vehicle to tell your story and not a way to kind of police others in a sense.
Yeah.
As to what they could use or not. At least that's how I feel, and that's how my group feels about it.
I agree on that. I think most of our community and group are the same kind of way. There might be a couple sticklers at it, but doesn't bother the majority of us, right? It's just we have had. It's funny, we have had a few new players right at the end here for Heresy that actually have jumped in within the last, I don't know, maybe 8 months.
Yeah.
And at the tail end of it playing, some of us haven't really been playing that much just because we're waiting on the new edition, of course. But just to see them kind of jump in, and we have one friend that he literally took his 40K Space Wolves army and brought it over into 30K, and he's been having a blast, right? Just playing it and learning the game and whatnot. And I don't think there's been one person that has criticized that he has 40K, minis and stuff in his force, right? So, props to the community for that, and hopefully it doesn't get any kind of flack from anybody. But it's a dime dozen, right? There's the scale is, you got the good and the bad, so
the spectrum is wide in Heresy.
Yeah. But give those. It's funny. I was gonna say, I actually never really thought of Heresy as a historical until John has mentioned it just now, right? Because I do play historicals, and then to think of Heresy as a historical, I'm like, wait a minute, that's kind of true, right? So props to the guys who put in that effort, like you said, to make their story of their army and that detail. Props to them too. But yeah, everybody has their game and minis and their hobby and their passion. So yeah,
it's true.
Yeah.
Something I noticed too is that, I don't know about you guys, maybe you guys will let me know, but I noticed that the loud voices against, we're talking about people who criticize armor marks or say something's too 40K. I kind of noticed that's mostly online. I haven't really seen it much in person. In the, how long has Heresy has been, almost 10 years now. I never really seen it in person. Most smack talking I've seen is people who don't paint their minis or whatever, right? I've never really seen smack talk of oh, that guy, why are you not using Mark 4, bro? What's going on with this Mark, with this Chaos Marine models? I've never really heard of that in person. It's mostly online. Have you guys seen any of that?
In person, no. Honestly, I really think that particular attitude is very much focused online. Most people, I don't want to use the word keyboard warrior, right? But most people will treat others vastly different online than they ever would with someone across the table. And I'm not sure why that continues to be a thing, especially in the tabletop hobby that we all enjoy and share. Not only when you play a game with somebody are you having a social contract to both have fun, show up, and have a good game, but that should translate over to online as well, right? Do you want to really be that negative douchebag online who just tears everybody down? I don't know. If you're always tearing at somebody, to me, that's, I don't know, that's kind of that's whack, right? Because contribute and giving constructive criticism when asked is all fair game. That's fine. Like, I ask for stuff online like that all the time. But if you're just spouting on something negative just to say something negative and it's totally unsolicited, well, yes, one, I get it. Yes, it's the internet. Oh, they open themselves up to that. Cool. At the second time, it is the internet, and you can just keep scrolling by, right? Like, oh, I don't like that. Cool. Like, scroll by, man. Who cares? Like, I don't know. That's my big thing, is just treat people online like you would treat them in real life.
Yeah. The question is it's like, do you have to say something?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, do you really? I mean, we
just so compelled. Fuck, I gotta see it.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly, right? Like, we have a friend who posted some minis on a different, it was a different game. He posted some minis. He had gotten them all painted up. They look really great. They're in a color scheme of like the Howling Griffins from 40K, but it's for a totally different game. And the bases used for the minis are not the bases that they would use for the actual game that those minis came from. And yeah, there was one guy on there that just like, there was no way, oh, they look awesome, the great job, good paint job, that blah blah blah, that's cool. No, it was straight to, well, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you just playing this game instead? Why are you jumping into that? Blah 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 blah, right? And I'm just thinking, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Right. And then there was a lot of people that jumped in there and went after the dude, but yeah, like, do you have to go that negative route? Do you really have to go that route? And in my opinion, you don't. But like Bill said, you're compelled. Some people are, some people aren't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And we do see that a lot now with the whole, like, someone posts something and something cool in the 30K group, and there's people who are like, "Ah, dude, that's kind of 40K," or like, I don't know, man, like, I think that's a Primaris bit there. Yeah, no, 40K here, man. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Now, if someone asks, like, "Hey, is this 30K appropriate?" And even then, like, why should that be a question? Like, why? Like, I dream of the community in a way where people stop asking, "Hey, can I use my Mars pattern Rhino?" Because the answer is always yes. Like,
absolutely.
Why do you need to? We just shouldn't need to ask that, right?
Yeah.
That's saying something about the community, where at the current community where new people are compelled to ask, "Is this okay?" In this creative hobby we have, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that kind of, like, I think, Bill, this happened to you when you were thinking about the Death Guard.
Yeah.
You had 40K
Yes.
Death Guard of the new range.
Yeah.
Right? They're all, just puffed up armor and grotesque looking tentacles everywhere. They're obviously been messed up by forces of chaos. And I think it was you were thinking of using them for, like, super Late-heresy, Siege of Terra kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think you posted that and kind of caught some flack.
It was it was a really quick paint job where I made them look like straight up Death Guard, and they're obviously Plague Marines with the corruption and everything. But to me, if you've read Warhawk or any of the late Siege of Terra books, that's what they are. They're Plague Marines, man, and they're swollen.
Yeah,
there's flies. Right?
Yeah, they straight up say Plague Marines in Warhawk. I remember. I just finished listening to that book again. They say Plague Marines. They make a point. They kind of make a fun joke about, like, oh, some people call them Plague Marines, and it's like, yeah, reader, they're Plague Marines.
Yeah. I love that. Right? I was like, this is awesome. But there were guys who were like, no, like, you got to do a lot of work to those, man. Get rid of the tentacles. Get rid of all the corruption crap. And I was just like, have you read these books? Like, do you know what's going on in these books? Because, like, this has progressed. If I'm using, like, Dusk Raiders or whatever, then no, I'm not going to run them looking like that. But I want to run, like, Late-heresy Plague Marines and still going true to the Death Guard color, right? It was that off cream, all rusted and beat up with the pale green shoulders. And then everything was kind of rusted and all typhus corrosion everywhere with dry brushing. Like, I thought they looked really cool, and it was super fast to do. But no, it was like maybe percentage-wise, like 3-1, we're like, no, like no, don't use that. And I was just like, just hurt my soul a little bit, right? I was like, God damn, because one of my biggest things, especially playing both systems, is I want to run an army that I can port and use 90% of my models in both systems. So my Iron Warriors, I can port them back and forth no matter what, thanks to the Forge Old Compendium book and everything. And I can pretty much use anything in my army minus Tyrant Terminators, and I think it's like my Lightning and the odd little vehicle here and there, but almost everything else ports over into 40k, which to me that's great. I don't have to spend another $3,000 on an army, and it's Iron Warriors. They're not super corrupty and covered in tentacles and crazy shit anyways. So for me, it works great. I love it. I always try to look at when I'm starting and tinkering with 30k, can I port this back and forth and have fun with it and be able to play my armies in both systems, because that's what I want to do. And answer is usually yes. And at the time I was playing Death Guard, so for 40k, so I wanted to port them back and forth, but it was definitely interesting.
But it's funny because you never got flack like community wise here.
No, it's just online again.
Everybody thought that was a cool idea.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's mostly online, right? And that's the interesting thing, is a lot of the controversy online. Like well, John, yourself, you have a knack for posting these controversial questions that seem to just stir the hornet's nest like crazy. But I love it. I love the discussion and the provoking of response, right? Because again, people are like compelled, good or bad, they're gonna throw in comments. Sometimes there's like over 150 comments and the thing's been up for 20 minutes and you're like, oh, it's on fire, right? Like, it's just crazy. But
yeah, I love doing that, because I love the introspection. That I think this community needs introspection. Like people spout out, oh, we're narrative. We we're not like those 40k cavemen and the competitive games. Like, nah, dude, you guys are 30k community is competitive. Like, straight up, don't.
There, you said it. There you go.
It is.
It is.
You heard it here.
My favorite. I forgot. I forgot if it was. You guys know. Bill knows Donnie. He always comments too. My buddy. I know it was him or someone else mentioned that. Oh, you guys remember the narrative of sniper vets? People had these stories of their sniper vets rending these Mechanicum constructs, and suddenly they nerfed it, and no one had the sniper vet narrative anymore. Yeah. Remember that?
Yeah.
No, it's competitive. There's no narrative. There's no real narrative there.
Yeah.
It's a competitive game, like straight up. Yeah. And that's okay. That's okay. It's okay to be competitive.
It is okay.
Right?
Well,
you could be competitive and gentlemanly.
Well, that is the real kicker right there, is can you play a hard competitive list but still be a gentleman on the tabletop? Because if you're standing there like, well, I run narrative, man, I'm taking 20 more Dathan with combi flamers. Fuck you. You're not just straight up narrative, because I've never read a story where they were all with combi flamers, right? Like, no. But again, that's the thing. In your mind or that person's mind, that's narrative in their mind. Cool. If I'm taking all artillery and bodies for my Iron Warriors, that's narrative in my mind. So it's subjective, but again, you should be able to have a gentlemanly game and talk to your opponent about the kind of game you want to play, and it should be okay, right? Like, you should be able to meet in the middle somewhere and roll the dice, right?
Yep. Yeah, my narrative is 12 quad mortars with Phosphex and 3 Medusas with Phosphex. Yeah. And I hope you like Scatter Dice. Nah, I'm just kidding.
But if you play Death Guard, I'd be like, okay, I get it. This guy's motherfucking poison. Yeah. Cool. Right? But if you played like, other legions, I'd be like, right? Like,
what about the drill and the Mechanicum reinforcements there that come out with these?
So that's one thing that does upset me, and I don't blame players for taking a allied detachment of Mechanicum with the Magos, so you can take 10 hoplites in a termite drill and pop up and delete a unit of whatever, be it a Spartan or any other vehicle, completely just wipe it away. It's not their fault that they want to use something super good like that. It's where the game needs to be changed, because haywire is a problem. And it's the access to haywire that's the problem. Is, Mechanicum, it's everywhere. Awesome. With Legion armies, it's not that prevalent. If they would have FAQ'd and say, well, hey, any combi weapon can be a combi grab weapon to give you haywire and whatnot. Like, if all my Terminators could have haywire, like, combi bolters, killer, man. Like, I'd be down. But you can't, right? It does make it a broken mechanic where it's on, oh yeah, so on a 2+, basically, your Spartan's fucked. You're like, wow, cool. Right? Like, it does make some feel bads.
But that's where, like, you talk about, you know, narrative or fluffy army or whatever, where it's like, did they really have access or teamed up with the Mechanicum like that? Just
Well,
in general?
some legions, sure. Right?
Yeah.
Like Iron Hands, Iron Warriors, even Salamanders, I go and say, okay, even probably Imperial Fists, you know, that have a little bit of a bro code from helping them out. Do I see, like, Night Lords teaming up with Mechanicum? Maybe-ish, sure. I know they talk about Word Bears. They have some, you know, Automata units with them here and there. I think that every Legion probably had some support from Mechanicum forces, but just how far do you want to go with it, right? Like, I don't know. It's always one of those fine lines, right?
It's tough because it's still a game.
Yeah.
And like you said, you know, there's going to be that competitiveness no matter what. Like, you're playing a game against another general to defeat them to win the game. That's bare bones, plain and simple. That's the competitive part right there. No questions asked, right?
Well,
you know, you want to win.
As soon as you roll dice,
regardless.
you can't tell me there's no competition when you're rolling dice.
Right. I mean, you want to win in the game, right? Like, that's why you're playing. Is you're playing. Yes, you're playing to have a good time, but you want to defeat your opponent, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, with these games, there are tons of units, and of course, there's just that thing of, like, you're gonna comb through the units and use the ones you like because you're looking at them like, oh, you know what? I like these abilities. I like these skills. I like these weapons. I like these whatever traits that these units are getting because there's a little bit of a combo, right? Now, guys could be saying, "Oh no, I don't build it like that." You know, I'm taking all these guys because this is how they were, fluffy wise, blah 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 blah. Okay, that's cool, but I still guarantee you're going to still take units with options that are still going to be very effective. So don't give me that bullshit, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, in general, it's just you can't get away from it. You can't get away from looking at units and trying to incorporate them into an army that you want to build to be successful.
And
right,
to talk about that, this is my hope moving forward for Heresy is I'm hoping that Games Workshop will still put the time to update and support Heresy like 40K is going. Now, let me explain before you boo, hiss, and throw shit at your TV or whatever you're watching on. The reason I'm saying that is, okay, so let's take the standard Sikaran chassis, right? The twin autocannon, plain Jane, the first one that came out. Awesome tank. It was great. The points got bumped up. The Arcus came out. That tank is shit now. Because the Arcus, for 205 points, beats it in every aspect. Any comparison, it's always going to win. So, okay, well, they could tweak it in the next Legion approved or chapter approved or whatever book, and they drop it back to 135, and I would take the plain Jane battle tank every time if it was cheaper. But because I'm paying 25 or 30 points more for this 8-shot strength 8 AP2 killing machine, there's no contest. And it's like, well, yeah, but you're trying to optimize and take like the better units. I'm just trying to get pound for pound good choices for the points I'm spending. Yeah. I'm still taking 60 Marines in my army, but I want to have something that gives me a little hit, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Games Workshop, with the new edition, if the rumors are true and they're going so ham that they're releasing, you know, the 3 starter sets and all that, I do hope that they do follow that up with balance updates, with FAQs. And I mean, I don't want a every quarterly one like 40K necessarily, you know, but, you know, release them twice a year, release them once a year.
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, Bill, like breachers have been kind of garbage for 10 years now. I mean, outside of ZM, but like, let's be honest, no one seriously takes breachers and expects them to pay for their points, right?
It's just that Stone Gauntlet guy who's like, they're the best. You're like, yeah, because they're T5 for you.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like they're kind of useless. Like, also, side note, I'm gonna rant now. The fact that this giant 7-foot tall slab of adamantium does nothing against bolters still triggers me. So I hope that in the new edition, breacher shields do something. Because right now, a breacher marine has the same defensive stats as attack marine against bolter fire. Triggers me. Anyways, that's so narrative, right?
How cool would it be to add +1 to your armor saves if you had a breacher shield? So now you got 2+ save with breacher marines. Like, that alone would make them night and day different, and not OP or crazy. Just a 2+ save, man.
Adjust the points if they're too cheap. You know, that's easy to do, right? Yeah. You know, make them good, make them flavorful. And I agree. If Games Workshop does give it the attention 40K is getting, then that will be good, because then you see you see units that aren't used be used. You see more interesting gameplay fixes for issues that the game's having. That would be great. I don't see how that's a bad thing. You know,
totally.
especially because there's only there's Mechanicum and then there's Custodes and Militia, but there's the Legion list, and that's way easier to balance and kind of, I guess, mentally juggle the updates with, because it's, you know, one giant army list, right?
No.
Compared to in 40K when there's like 50 factions.
It's true. No, it's true.
Yeah, it'd be good to, you know, see what they're going to be doing. Like you said, erratas, updates, being a bit more common is going to be a good thing for the system. And I mean, since what we've seen so far with just them kind of pumping out some heresy stuff, probably way more than they have in I don't know how long. I'm excited. I see a lot of good things happening, and I think the hype train is just going to go off the rails when it does pop off.
Yeah,
and we're probably going to see stuff that we haven't seen yet, obviously. So it's just going to be like fireworks going all over the place, kind of thing, right? So.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes. You can already tell that there's a substantial increase in just advertising and the way that Games Workshop is starting to push it. When that trailer dropped with Horus, and I was watching it, at first I was like, is this for a goddamn video game? Like, what is this? And then, like, you start to see it and you're like, whoa, like, I've never seen something like that before. And that blew my mind. And it's been a talking point, just not inside Heresy as well, but like community wide, like locally. I think there's probably 4 or 5 40K guys that are like, ooh, like, I saw that trailer, man, and like, I want to play Heresy. They're starting to see pictures of new models and like, yeah, Heresy could be really good. I think I want to do that, because they also see that we've been playing it for 10 years. And you guys, you still playing Heresy? Yeah, man, we're still playing Heresy. Like, ooh, like, they want to have a different change of pace, and playing both systems, you get that. It's 2 different systems, but you can play them for different reasons, and it's refreshing to play either. So,
yeah, you're right, because ultimately, you know, I mean, I love Heresy, right? That's my favorite game, but I don't think it's a better game than 40K, right? It's just a different experience. Mm-hmm. You know, it's, if I want to play the battles in the books, if I want to rock in with my 18 legions, yeah, that's where Heresy is. You know, if I want to rock my Primaris Black Templars, I'll play 40K. You know, different game, right? And I think they should exist side by side. And that's a problem, you know, we're seeing with a lot of people in the community, is there's this intrinsic belief that, you know, if I play 30K, I'm better than 40K players. It's like, come on, that's a joke, right? It's a game, first of all, you know, and no reason why they couldn't both exist at the same time. There's no reason why you couldn't play both at the same time.
It's true,
right? So
it is true. It's that kind of brings up like the next point is, I'm always so curious about this. It's this weird animosity towards 40K, the community as a whole. You know, you'll see a bunch of guys, you know, in 40K, they have a ton of Heresy bits, Heresy models, all scattered throughout their force. Awesome. People are like, wow, it looks so cool. Like, even myself, I'm rocking my Executioners. I've got the Forge World Imperial Fist heads. on all my Primaris guys. They look badass. They don't look like normal Primaris. Cool, right? And everybody loves it. You go back the other way. Here's the guy using Chaos Space Marine body with Mark III shoulders and a head and a backpack. I don't know, man. Jesus, like, what? It just seems like there's all this animosity towards 40K, be it players, the system, models. It's just, I don't know. It really does blow my mind.
And it's even more funny because the 40K community does not give a fuck about the 30K community. They're like, cool, dude, they're playing their game.
They don't.
Cool, you know?
And you know what's weird is touching on what Bill said there, not just referencing from 40K to 30K, but some of the other games out there, gaming system communities, there's always something against 40K players. And I don't get it, because like, you're playing a war game. You know what? It's a different war game. It's not like 40K. We know 40K is fairly, you know, competitive, and there's lots of stuff going on in the game. And you're playing this historical game, and you're talking smack that it's all competitive power gamers in 40K, but then you go and you look and like, you're doing the same thing in this historical game. So I don't get it, right? What's the hate? Like, you know, like I said, I have my digits in tons of games out there, and you see it in this one and you see it in that one. So the mentality is still, it's the same kind of thing, and it's just it is mind-boggling. Like, why is there so much hate? There wouldn't probably be war games if it wasn't for Warhammer 40K, right? Or Space Crusade or Space Hulk or all that stuff that came out way back when, because there was no bolt action, there was no, you know, other games out there, War Machine and all that stuff, right? And you know, Game of Thrones, all that stuff. There was none of that stuff out there. It was literally just like Warhammer Fantasy Battles and, you know, 40K or Rogue Trader or stuff like that. So I don't know. I guess that's kind of how it's evolved, that there's always that hate for 40K. But
yeah, it's weird. There's times where I'm you know, I kind of dig into other systems, and I always ask them, like, I go to a group, you know, like kind of, guys have heard of Conquest, the new rank and flank game. But, you know, I go to some Facebook groups like, hey guys, like, I'm interested in your game, like, can you tell me about it? Like, what's the gameplay like? And every time, whatever game it is, there's always one person that says, oh, it's good because it's not Warhammer, it's not 40K. And I'm like, that doesn't tell me anything, you know? Like, doesn't tell me anything about your game. Like, how is that a positive? I don't know. Yeah, because I have there's this kind of hate for 40K, and it is weird. You know, I don't know. Haters is being hate. I don't know.
Haters are gonna hate. They really will. I think the biggest thing, and I see it used as the excuse, I guess, is, oh, well, 40K just breeds these hyper competitive meta chasers that are doing this. Okay, but those are the guys who are flying state to state to play in every single ITC tournament they can, who at the end of the year they want to play and try and win major cash prizes of, like, you know, a couple $1,000s. Sure, that's a small percentage that play at that high level. The rest of us, we're just trying to roll dice, man. I just want to roll dice, clink a beer. Hey, cool. Shake your hand after. You watch some of these other high level player guys, it's like they're Rain Man. They're all over the place, and like it's like you're watching a whole different game. We're not all there. Like, that's a whole tier above, and I don't know, it just seems like, I think at some point somewhere people forget, you know, the system has a lot of diversity, the community itself has a lot of diversity. Don't pin the whole experience on just one or two or a small majority of players, right? It's just not the way.
Right. Which goes back to, there's that fear that with 30K getting all this attention, that it's going to turn into 40K, right? Yeah. And, you know, it won't. Like 30K is not going to turn into 9 Void Weavers or 3 Malanthropes or whatever. Like, it's not.
No.
Because even in 40K, not every Harlequin, like 1% of Harlequin players have 9 Void Weavers. Most people who play Harlequin just want to roll dice, like us, you know? Mm-hmm. And 30K getting that attention, it's not going to turn into hyper competitive ITC shenanigans. It's just going to be the same with plastic models and more people, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know what? So what if it did? So what if it did turn into something with ITC, right? You still have that option of, you know what, you're going to have the majority of the community still playing that historical part of it, right? And you know what, if there's tournaments happening where it's a competitive ITC kind of tournament, and you know people are pushing out models and pumping out games and getting, you know, competitive like that, just like for 40K, cool. You know what, that might actually draw other players into it for that aspect of the game. So you'll start seeing more armies, more you know, miniatures done up and stuff like that, and you'll have more players. And a lot of times, and we've seen this here locally, is guys who are into 40K and they start peaking at 30K, and the comments that come out of their mouth is, you know what, I just want to make a narrative kind of fluffy list and just play it. And these are competitive players,
Yeah.
coming backwards and saying that and playing. You know, it happens. The guys either, you know, they either just have been playing that way for so long that they just kind of want to, like you said, clink beers and have fun and roll out, paint their, you know, their Imperial fists and go, right? But the other way around too, you know, like, I'm not like a super competitive player. I mean, I can play a good game and give the buddies a good run for their money in most games. But come to a tournament or whatever, right? You're going to a tournament for a reason, right? Like, if you're going to a tournament, you're going there to try to win, right? With the army that you brought. If you're going to an event that has a narrative aspect to it, hopefully you and the other players of that community have taken the time and, you know, put some thought into your narrative army so that it would fit the theme of the event. Plain and simple, right? And I think that's where there's a little bit of confusion a lot of times, is people end up going, oh, I'm going to this tournament, or I'm going to this event, and it's an instant, like, competitive. Well, no, it's not. Like,
Yeah.
I know for Bolt Action, it's not like that for us here. It's, we're doing an event, we're going to do this set of battles that is in this set of time and in this theater of war. You know, you can make your armies, here's some guidelines, but this is what you can use, early, mid, late war kind of thing, right? So it's just another aspect of wargaming and where community's going with it. And if you have a group, there's some groups, you have the team battles, right? You have like a team that you're scoring points as a team per match, to see where you guys end up, right? So, and I think that's cool too, because that builds good players in an aspect, right? So, but what else do you say?
You're right.
Really?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's no reason why the competitive and narrative scene couldn't coexist. I mean, even 40K, like LVO and Adepticon, have narrative 40K events, and they're always sold out. It's, you know, it exists. No reason why 30K couldn't have an ITC event and a narrative event at big conventions.
Well, that's true. You can attract players from both sides of the spectrum. I know LVO has bounced back and forth from having competitive events to slowly transitioning over to narrative events where there's not a podium finish, like there's no best general or anything like that for winning games, and trying to, you know, continue to have these stories. No matter what, you're always going to have someone who wants to bring what they feel is narrative, and it is what it is. But don't let that one experience, like, oh, you know, there's a couple guys, they're rolling around with Perforians. It sucks to play against them. Yes, I get it. But at the same time, don't let that one game wreck your weekend, right? Like, okay, didn't go well, whatever. Play another guy, have fun. It's if you're playing narrative games, it should be more about having fun telling the story. But in the same breath, yes, you can still have competitive games, and both can coexist. You could have double events. It just really depends on your player base, right? How many guys you actually have. Because I'm very much the mindset of more the merrier. I'd rather have a 40-man event that's shoehorning a narrative into it versus having like a 15-man or 16-man competitive and then a 24-man narrative. Like I don't like to have really small player pools. I'd rather have one big pool. And if people like it enough and you've taken time to have balanced missions where the ability to score is still, there's still tactics involved and you can still play hard, but it has that narrative aspect where there is some balancing and ways to play friendlier games. I think that's like a really good sweet spot. So it all takes time to continue to hone and evolve the way the games are played. So and there's nothing saying that when all the dice rolling's done and the tables are open, you can't just have like a rock'em sock'em battle with guys who want to play that way anyways after the event's done. So there's just so many ways to play and so many systems.
I think the best thing about it all, at the end of it all, when you had your games or you had your tournaments or events, is you are making those memorable moments that you're sharing with your crew, you're sharing with the boys, or you've gone to Las Vegas and you're having a brew with a couple of the other players and you're just hooting and hollering about what's happening in your game, right? And I think that's, at the end of the day, that's what you're doing this for, right? Is playing and having fun and making those moments. And like 5 years ago, go by and hey Bill, you remember when we had that big orc and corn battle that was like across the field? That kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what game, right? You remember that headshot I hit you on the first turn? Doesn't matter what game. It's just, that's kind of where I think everything ends up at the end of the day. It's just having that fun, not letting certain things get to you like that, like from aspects of people just kind of criticizing, nitpicking at everything, and just having a fun time.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, for the new players coming in Heresy, that's what Heresy is about. It's just another way to enjoy the game, enjoy games with your buddies. And it's not about getting the right mark pattern of bolter or missile launcher in your Marines. It's about, this is yet another game to play with your best buds, have a good time, have good memories.
Yeah,
that's what it's about.
100%. If you are a new player and you're listening to this, jump in, have fun. Rule of cool. Gravitate to like-minded people, and I guarantee you'll play this game for years to come. Don't let a couple naysayers online deter you from what you think is cool and what you want to tell your story, because we're all trying to do the same thing. And I honestly think that's the best advice like pretty much anyone can have. Do you, and just let it rip. So, but no, that's probably a pretty solid point to probably end on. Honestly, it's pretty decent.
Yeah. Build it, paint it, play it.
There we go.
That's the way. So again, John, thank you so much for jumping on with us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
If you want to check out some of the stuff that John does, we're going to have links in the description, so you can always peek at that. And keep an eye out for John on the Facebook Heresy pages. I'm sure you'll see these threads pop up, and jump in. Like I love checking them out. I love reading it and the controversy. And it's just, as soon as I see this, like, bing, I'm like, oh, let me check it out, right? Like, I gotta read it. So, yeah, no, it's great. It's great.
You got to think about my next armor-piercing question.
That's right, yeah. No, I'm ready for it, man. I enjoy it. So, yeah, keep it up. And we will catch you guys next time.
See you guys.
See you. Trident Wargaming. Build it, paint it, play it.